That's hilarious. That's amazing. All right. Well, let me go ahead and give you the official BeerNet Radio welcome. I'd like to welcome to BeerNet Radio Bill Shufelt, co-founder of Athletic Brewing Co., which has the top brand family in NA beer. Athletic knocked out another banner year in 2025 with depletions up about 30%, I believe, and holding its 19% market share of the NA category, though Bill has said that they will gain share this year. They plan to gain share this year. The company has grown steadily since its 2017 inception, and BBD readers may recall that the brewer has the largest non-alc dedicated facilities in the U.S., having just opened a new 750,000 barrel plant in San Diego. So welcome, Bill.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here. That's a high bar to live up to. And
Yeah.
I think, not to fact check, but I think we're up like 22 to 24% in Circana last
Okay.
year. So yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, really fun to be here. It's obviously a fun time of year in the non-alcoholic beer market, but hopefully a fun year in the beer market overall as we turn a corner on the calendar.
Yeah. 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 Well, we're going to ask you for some predictions for all of it. But, as you mentioned, it's a fun time of the year for non alc. We're in dry January, right? But of course, I have to ask a lot has happened over the last couple of weeks. And we've had some articles come out say, like, we want to drink beer again and we want to drink again and this sort of thing. So it makes me wonder, is dry January still as relevant as it ever was, considering you guys have been so successful getting people to moderate all year long?
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed reading those articles. That's nice to see people finding their voice. I think Athletic's been really consistent the whole time. Like we never launched with like a prohibitionist approach at all. Like our overall goals is, I was a beer lover at heart and I wanted beer that I could drink in more occasions, more places, bring more people into those occasions, myself included, but felt like I was losing a lot of colleagues and friends to like happy hours and stuff because people didn't necessarily want alcohol on all those occasions. And so we've never had any judgments at all about people drinking alcohol or like we think there's like an amazing world of alcohol like out there, a lot of great brands, great people obviously throughout our industry. And I think it's natural to have as like trends take shape, like I think health and wellness and moderation is clearly a mega trend. Moderation is a mega trend because moderation basically didn't exist and had no products 10 years ago. So, like, naturally, there's more people being moderate than there were 10 years ago. But I think there's a great place for everything in the industry too. And I think that tension too is very healthy. I, I think in our world, like getting out, being social, that connection, but also like the relax occasions, the unwind, the celebration occasions are all very real. And there's a lot of room at the table for a lot of different kinds of beverages.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you think this dry January, do you think it will be bigger than previous dry Januaries, or do you think that that particular occasion will start to kind of level off?
Yeah, I actually do think the seasonality of January probably is leveling off towards, more like a year-round moderation trend. And like we have seen that year over year. In like the shoulders of our seasons are definitely stronger than the existing beer category.
Hmm.
But it's yeah, I would say as like the world gets more moderate every day, there's like less of a correction in January from the excesses, but
Hmm.
still a lot of opportunity to meet consumers like with healthy habits, looking at healthy resets, new things to try and drink and celebrate and have fun throughout the year with. So we still meet a huge amount of consumers that stick with us all year in January, and we're seeing like very unchanged patterns to that this year.
Got it.
I wanted to just follow up right here on dry January. Can you talk about how competitive this month has become? Because sure, the NA beer space is more crowded than it's ever been, but you have all these functional beverages coming in too, trying to make K over the month, as well as THC beverages and other like NA intoxicating beverages. I mean, it sort of seems like there's a lot of beverage brands that aren't alcoholic that feel like they have a right to kind of try and capitalize on the space on the dry January event nowadays. What are you seeing out there right now?
Yeah, and even like broader than that, I think alcohol lost those occasions a long time ago, like a lot of those weeknights and January occasions specifically. And the brands that had a lot of those were like sodas and sparkling waters and stuff. Like when we look at our basket data, who we compete head on with and who trades into our company, there is a lot of soda and sparkling water and non-beer occasions and non-beer consumers entering beer. So we are seeing soda companies and things compete very heavily for dry January now too.
That's really interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Well, speaking of what people are buying at the store, what are you seeing with resets, with spring resets when it comes to, you know, there are so many new players. Are the SKUs getting cold at all? Is the space for NA getting cold, especially NA beer, or is it keeping share, or is it actually even gaining share?
Yeah, I think there's both like macro and micro moves to that. So I think non-alcoholic beer at 1.7% of beer in the country,
Mm.
upwards of 2.5 to 5+%, depending on what channel you're talking about. But um, non-alcoholic beer is still in very healthy double-digit growth trends. Um, you know, Athletic as a company outsold what the entire non-alcoholic beer category was in 2018 last year. So, um, like the category is still in very healthy double-digit growth, and with the backdrop of a declining beer category, at least for last year. So there are shelf gains ongoing, but I would say like on the mat and there's more cold space in
Mm.
general. Like we are seeing like the category and especially athletic and some of the leading brands earn that shelf space and that cold space and continue to make gains. I do think there are micro trends going on too, though, where, every year there are, I think we're coming up on 5 years in a row where there's been a new brand that launches to 50+% distribution.
Mhm.
And like, Athletics still here chugging away, picking up our 3 to 5% distribution every year. But it once these companies launch to 50, 60, 70% distribution, it's really hard to lap. So there are big brands going backwards in distribution. There's also companies that kind of came and didn't really invest and are cycling out of the category as well. So there's a lot churning beneath the surface. But I do think non-alcoholic beer indexing towards overall beer is still like pointing in the right direction and growing. So
Yeah, just one more quick one from me. You're talking about some of the biggest brewers who have entered the NA space, right? And among those who have the most distribution in the NA beer space, where do you guys fall again? I feel like you've spoken to this, but if you could refresh us.
yeah, I mean, even relative to two brands that launched last year, we're 20 plus points of distribution behind with
Mhm.
our lead product, and then it falls off quickly from there.
Mhm.
Despite our team's doing an incredible job out there, our sales team is amazing, and we are door to door across the country every day supporting our distributors and retailers. But there's still the magic button that exists out there, and there's hundreds of distributors who we've been working with for 5 years who put new brands in almost every door this year. So that's of course frustrating. But at the same time, like would I want 70% distribution on day one? Probably not. That's a lottery to sell to live up to. And those companies from April 1st on are gonna have some really tough comps. So
It
and
Go ahead,
I
Bill.
was I was gonna say, and that's just like the chain world. Like if you start to look in the independent world, athletic distribution is even thinner. It's down near the very low double digits, and most distributors are in the single digits.
Yeah. Well, when you have those tough comps, I guess you can expect more extensions. And it seems like there's kind of a flavor frontier building in the NA beer space this year. Y'all are doing your first ever line extension with light lime and salt. Heineken Zero has a couple flavors coming out. Mick Ultra Zero does too. Constellation. And I'm sure there's more, but was this just sort of bound to happen given the flavor takeover in broader beer?
Yeah, it seems like we may all have a similar data provider or something going on there. But
Yeah.
I do think it's you know, it, like meeting the consumer where they're at. And non-alcoholic beer, when we came into the category less than 10 years ago, was a lager only category. There were like 10 brands, all lagers, and from day one, Athletics launched basically like tripled the amount of styles available in non-alcoholic beer. So I think it's only natural. There's like more breadth and depth to the category, and we think about that all very positive sum. So we're excited to bring more consumers into the category, both athletic and the category. Yeah, we have Athletic Light, which is, our light lager. It's 25 calories, zero sugar. That's been growing really fast. It's very under indexed for us. And the, it was just a very unexpected big hit, like the lime infused version of that. So we are bringing that to retail this year. And then our first major innovation at retail too is our brewed cocktails, which are at select retailers across the country right now with nice end caps and programming. So that's a really fun flavor innovation we're bringing to kind of flank the category as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's really impressive to go nearly a decade in beer without doing a line extension. Why was the timing right, and what did you see with that lime variant to say, okay, let's go for this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say awareness and distribution of our existing really highly awarded high velocity brands are is still very limited. And so we um we wanted to get those out to the world more. And we have uh, every SKU, basically every region in growth. So we've like our goal is to mostly focus and then bring some innovation out there to like help support retailers who've had a lot of our SKUs for a long time as well. Um, but yeah, overall, trying to stay pretty focused. I guess like even going a little deeper on that, like Run Wild six packs are in, I think it's like 39% of accounts, but our 12 packs are very low distributed. Of those beers, our team's won 185 global taste awards, and people should get to try all these beers. And then um, outside of that too, like flanking that, our awareness is still very low too. So it's like as we look back at like the craft beer era, I think there was like way too much hyper velocity of changing SKUs rather than like building loyalty and brands. And I think, as you look across the industry at like the most successful brands, like it's just really consistent brand building. And, we intend to do that as well.
Go
That's a
ahead, B.
good segue to kind of talk about other new entrants into NA. I know we talked a bit about the bigger brewers getting into the category, but what about, the likes of George Clooney, of Barrow, as the top NA brand. Are you worried about donating some share to people who maybe are athletic drinkers but are wanting to try something different?
Yeah. I may have misheard that. Bureau's not a top NA brand, but
No,
I know they.
you are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like they had a big launch, but it I whether it's like big brands or small brands, people ask me like every year, are you worried about this? Are you worried about this? We tend to kind of just like focus on what we do. Starting on the athletic side, our founder story for myself and then John is very authentic. And we're not born out of focus groups or quarterly earnings or like a VC firm. Like it is a founder story through and through, brewing on Gatorade jugs, bring a product and a love for beer out to the world that I wanted to exist. And I thought millions of people would also like that. And, survey data proved that out. And so we did it. And we're building that brand. And then investing like really heavily in our people. Like we have 300 incredible full-time teammates at Athletic. Our technology, we've built 4 breweries with the best quality equipment we have. If you walked around our breweries, the quality, process, and relentlessness and rigor on our beer quality is we own it totally ourselves in our own breweries through and through. And I think that shows up in all the awards, but like we didn't just like make a product and launch it out there with a contract brewer. Like that is what most of CPG is, and most of our category is that it's outsourced and basically sales and marketing companies. And like also in marketing, like our marketing is very authentic. It's face to face and like brand building, community building, and like so really long term building at Athletic with authenticity. I think now we've seen about 280 brands come into the category. There have been about 10 major celebrity brands. Every year I have investors sending me like what's coming new in celebrity. Like this is enormous. Like, and I do think, a lot's changed in the past 10 plus years. Like 10 years ago, there was almost no celebrity brands. Instagram had just been formed. But I think like 1,000 celebrity brands later, consumers are getting pretty good at sniffing out what's authentic and what's not. And so, yeah, I know there's been reporting out there on what's coming. I think it's a brand draped in Americana imagery, which is being launched by an elitist living in a French castle. I think like I think we'll let the market play out if that's like an exciting, authentic proposition, or maybe not. But um, at the end of the day, I'm optimistic it is. I'm optimistic it's good beer and they can bring people to the category. Like I think about beer very positive sum overall, but there have been a lot of very inefficient assortment decisions associated with a wide number of these brands. And then as they lap like year one or two, it's like the
Yeah.
same story. So
Yeah. So do you think, considering that and the other comps you talked about from some competitors, A, do you think it will be relatively easy to gain share in the category this year? And B, what levers do you think are going to unlock the most growth for you all this year?
yeah, I don't expect anything to be easy. It's the good news is we're having a ton of fun and we have a great team and like we are all over the place out in the world. It's what we want to be doing. At the end of every day, like I wish there was a button for 10 more hours, like so I could just pause time and do more athletic and talk to our teammates. And like my favorite thing in the world is like traveling around the country with our teammates, talking to retailers in person, meeting with our distributors, riding in their trucks. Like so I I just wish there was more hours in the day, and I'm having a ton of fun. And then our team just turned on this incredible new brewery in San Diego. We have access to like a ton of new tools and capacity for once. 1,200 minute canning line. Plus, like, every year that we grow, we get expanded marketing resources too. So, like, you'll see us continue to pull back the curtain on more and more fun partnerships and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't expect anything to be easy, but like it is a lot easier when you are genuinely having a lot of fun and you can't think of what else you would do. And we're also really proud of the beer that we are sharing with people. So yeah, I do expect the category to get really competitive too. Like there's a lot of funding in the category now. I can think of at least three brands off the top of my head who have raised significantly more money than Athletic did in the first 3 years and didn't build any breweries. So like
Yeah, what are
it's
they doing with that money?
yeah, but I mean that comes too. So there it is a competitive world out there. And but I do think about the world very positive sum. And I think zooming out from non-alcoholic beer too, like just in getting to know people in the industry and following the industry for so long. Like I think some of the mistakes the industry's made also are where like the industry thinks 2-0 sum, whether that's like light beer wars or it's craft versus independent, like and the industry spends a ton of time battling each other and like totally loses track of the consumer for 5 or 10 years. I think that's where we as beer get in trouble. And I think where we succeed is, at events like yours, we see everyone at happy hour and they're great people throughout the industry. If we all just all work together and bring more people to sporting events, music, athletics, moments of celebration, and just spend more time cementing beer as the cornerstone of life celebrations and relaxations and culinary pairing rather than like fighting with each other, I think like I that's an extremely long way of coming back to competition and that we try to just like focus on industry building, category building, and our athletic goals rather than competition dynamics for the most part.
Sure, sure, sure. Fair, fair, fair. But then the second part, I mean, if you had to choose one or two or even three of what will unlock the most growth for you guys this year, what would those drivers be?
I think it would be awareness probably. We still very few, like if you walk up and down the street and ask like, what's your favorite non-alcoholic beer brand or do you know Athletic, the aided or unaided awareness is still pretty low. So
Mhm.
we're excited to bring more people into our world in the year ahead. And I think that's a very easy one. And then I think distribution too, especially in the independent universe and convenience universe. I think it's something like 55% of the beer in this country is sold in convenience, and Athletic has just about 0% share of that channel, which is like a big mismatch for the number one brand family in the country.
Right.
But I hear more and more, it's not necessarily a marketable angle, but like people's commute beer is their favorite beer. So yeah.
I don't know. You got to get those 24-ounce athletics in there, man.
Yeah, there's always the new package, like right
Yeah.
as we retool everything for 19.2. Yeah.
um, what about the on-premise though? Because I know this month for what y'all call Athletic January, the on-premise seems to have been a big focus in this campaign. So, what are you seeing there? And on draft, is it all systems go now? Have y'all hit that point?
Yep, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, draft's been going great. It's steadily compounding, picking up handles here and there. And it's just, really fun to be able to drink a run wild on draft. And yeah, and the on-premise broadly, non-alcoholic beer is still we are still changing minds in the on-premise for the most part, like one place at a time. It takes convincing. There's a lot of stigmas and misconceptions to overturn there still. So, and awareness is very low. So, the industry, especially in the on-premise, has made all their profit dollars in alcohol for so long, and convincing them that there's like a huge profit bucket for this is, it's an individual conversation. And so, our team's been doing a great job. I think our on-premise business was up near 50% last year, probably 45%. And we're like a really beloved brand by a lot of chefs and bartenders, and so showing up on prestigious menus. But yeah, I think it's a great discovery channel, and I think in terms of just industry dynamics too, it feels like we're really getting back to the point where I think in COVID, there was a period where the margin and velocity of the off-premise was so attractive to the industry. And for a few years there, it was really hard to get regular deliveries to on-premise accounts. And I think finally the industry is getting back there where like brand building happens in the on-premise. We have to really service this channel. All the areas we have in highest growth are where our distributors are the best on-premise servicers and not telcel or like once a month deliveries. Like I know Telcel is an attractive margin proposition, but people have to get out in the world and share that they're going to do Telcel with bartenders. um, but anyway, sorry, that's an aside. Um, anyway, the on-premise is both really exciting and I think super important to our industry.
Yeah, you kind of made it sound on draft there like there was nothing to it, but there's still a lot of brands out there still trying to figure out how to do draft. Are you one of the only handles you see at accounts?
For the most part, yeah. And at the same time, like we have done the work and feel really good about it. And we know through and through athletics quality controls inside our building. Like we are doing things right. We have tested everything and we feel really good about our like the system and quality along the whole chain. And I think that's an important confidence level to people to get to. And candidly, you have to have those skills and expertise in-house to be able to get there in a category that's like 90% contract brewed. That's a really hard level to get to. A lot of companies don't have a brewer on their team to begin with. So, but if you go overseas, there are non-alcoholic taps in almost every pub in a lot of different UK and Europe countries, especially like sometimes multiple brands. So, and there aren't widespread issues or health concerns or anything. So we can absolutely get there with the right quality controls in the industry, and athletics super confident that we're there.
Yeah, and I bet you I don't know, I like to say 2 to 5 years, that's like my sort of medium term. I bet you there will be after you guys lead the charge, there will be several other ubiquitous non-alc tap handles too. I mean, I'm sure they have a long way to go, but once you normalize it, I'm sure they'll try to find their way there too, and eventually we'll get there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if non-alcoholic beer goes to 10 and ultimately 20% of the beer category, you would think if there's 20 tap handles at a bar, ultimately that would go from, 2 to 5 brands, and hopefully a lot of different styles are represented there. And you have specialties, you potentially have local, international imports. So, yeah.
And you still believe
Or
in that 10 to 20 share sort of prediction for non-alc to get to of the beer market, yeah, in America.
yeah, I think we've seen the data points and the green shoots in all the right directions. Personally, I don't think we see really any data pointing in opposite directions to that. So I do absolutely think there will be category churn in the coming years, but I'm very bullish on the category overall. Everything is very consistently growing double digits, and we expect that to continue. Just with like health and wellness and moderation and people craving experiences. But yeah, the math isn't too hard to get to 10% of the beer in the medium term. And we did have, a national retailer with hundreds of stores past 20% at one point last year. And then we are seeing almost every national account past 5% for the most part,
Oh,
I
wow.
think.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah. As if when did they cross that threshold? Maybe at the end of last year or
um typically some of the biggest share gains are in January, and
okay.
then it takes a while to build back up like towards the summer and fall
That
again to those peaks. But
thanks.
yeah, we had a number of retailers end at above 10% of total beer was non-alcoholic beer last year.
Got it. Got it. Just a couple more because I know we're getting close on time, but I want to talk briefly about the future. We have talked many times, and you've said this on the pod before. The majority of your drinkers also drink alcohol. I think it's what, 80% of your drinkers or something like that also drink alcohol?
Yeah, it varies by survey, and I've seen our data and Nielsen data up into the 90 percentile at
Okay.
time, but typically around 80% I think is normal.
Okay. So then, of course, I have to ask, and I can almost guess what your answer would be, but I have to ask anyway. Would you guys ever get into any sort of alcohol? And if not alcohol, maybe a more direct alcohol competitor?
Yeah, well, no, sorry, I didn't mean to say yeah. Yeah, it's like yeah, it's like it was like my,
We're going
but
to cut it right there.
I would say, I would say me and John are like tinkerers at heart, and my ideal like brunch has like 8 beverages around it.
Oh
But
my God, we
Y'all
need to have
kindred
brunch
spirits.
together because that is
Good spirits with
the
Jen.
um,
anyway, continue. Sorry.
But I think we do have to, we believe so firmly in the long-term potential of our core brand. And like most great beverage companies are built on a very narrow set of like
Right.
very breakthrough brands that really resonate. And so if you go across any sort of categories, that seems to be the case. So our bias is to stay relatively focused and not overcomplicate things, but on the other side, we do have an incredible brewing team, quality team, innovation team. We have 3 barrel, 7 barrel systems, all the way down to Gatorade jugs. So it is almost risk-free to try all this stuff. So that's how you end up with like 50 new beers a year on our website that are just like a smaller part of our business, but very fun. And then our fridges at the company are always full of new things. And then the things that really catch lightning in a bottle make it out to like scale. Um, but that's a long way of saying that like we think about a lot of things, we're bullish on a lot of things. I love seeing the mid-strength trend play out.
Mhm.
I think that's a huge opportunity to like enhance beer volume and occasions and have people like stretch out their drinking occasions back
Mhm.
to longer. I think that's good for socializing. And then you have like THC hemp and other functional ingredients too. I I'd say we're like probably not to a lot of things. And you know like most things just generally don't make sense to us, but I wouldn't say never to anything except maybe alcohol. Like I think alcohol is pretty well covered and would introduce a lot of regulatory complexity to our business. But I also view THC as like I think a lot of people are finding their alcohol replacement in THC. A lot of people, I think, mistakenly think, oh, dry January and non-alcoholic beers have to kill our industry. Like, I really think we are mostly additive. We found that over 25% of our customers are new to the beer aisle and category and occasions. And so there aren't many Bev-Alc innovations that show like addition rather than swapping. I do think THC is mostly a one-for-one alcohol substitute, though, and that's probably a bigger risk to direct alcohol suppliers. So that's potentially interesting for the like as this plays out over the next year, where the regulation falls out. If it's a state by state framework that shakes out, that's probably very bad for big national suppliers, very good for craft beer, local producers, I would say overall. But it's going to be an interesting dynamic.
So you guys would get into potentially THC before you would get into alcohol, or am I hearing that wrong?
I think neither. I think
Okay.
no to both. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Just to be sure.
Yeah. I You're speaking to someone who's not sure, except no to alcohol. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
um, I just wanted to ask one more thing, and we were kind of talking about it earlier, but I know you hear rumblings of brands and people's getting into the non-alc beer space. At this point, are you ever surprised anymore at who you might be hearing is getting into non-alc beer?
Um, I'm I mean, there are all different angles to that. Like, I think there's like 10 fairly major celebrities in the category now. I think there were three alone last year. Um, and then, most major beer brands and large craft brewers are in the category now too. So I think it's all just about making great beer and growing the category. And I think, we're probably the most focused on that. And so, um, but yeah, overall, I'm not surprised. Yeah, I think it'll just be a more and more attractive and obvious proposition as the timeline goes on.
Are you surprised at how, um, kind of like you were saying earlier about, you know, they jump out to these huge distribution rates and then trail off and then, kind of fall by the wayside. Are you surprised at how quick that cycle happens for some of these brands? Or can you kind of
Uh,
foresee that coming in?
Yeah, I mean, speaking candidly, like as a craft beer lover who didn't drink for over 10 years, like I got to taste some of my favorite craft beer brands in non-alcoholic form for the first time in over a decade. And like I was very much looking forward to some of those that I overall thought, has been more disappointing than surprisingly great. But so I do think overall, like similar to the craft beer like talk of the late 2010s, I think overall quality is an obligation for everyone to help build categories the right way. Because when you don't know where people will come into the category, and unfortunately a lot of what is on the shelf right now across all participants is not awesome non-alcoholic beer.
Mhm.
Still, like I think the category is a long way to go. It's come a long way from 2018, but relative to the field, Athletic won over 30 taste awards last year. So, it's a pretty disproportionate share.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of contract too. So you kind of wonder how how different some of these beers can be if, you know, it's a handful of contractors making most of them. So
Yeah. Yeah. Is it like a check the box, or is it like a true quality commitment that people are excited to have their name on? And, I think it falls on both sides of the fence there. There's some brands that are awesome. It's like have a lot of friends in the industry, and I like um there, there's a lot of brands that I'm really glad are in the category. Like when I go into a bar and restaurant, I'm extremely rarely like telling a bartender like, hey, I think you should take that off and just put athletic there. It's very often like that's a good beer, but you should also potentially consider having these two additional beers or something.
yeah.
Unless it's someone who like copied every word on my website and raised 30, like 20 million in venture funding to like rip us off. Like, but the other brands who are doing a great job, like I'm totally supportive of.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I have one more, but B, I think you look like you're ready.
Um, I mean, we talked about it a bit today, but there's been obviously a renewed focus in occasions in the industry and focusing on bringing back occasions or creating new ones. And so, where does Athletic and NA fit in with that? Just this week you announced you're on American Airlines flights over 250 miles domestically and some international outbound flights. And so, is that kind of an example of where NA fits in occasion wise, or is there other occasions we're maybe not thinking of?
I think it's honestly everywhere. Like, simple math I've always done is that like people are drinking alcohol like maybe like 1% of the time they're awake. And, there is another 99% out there that I think we are going to figure out a lot of enjoyable beer occasions over the coming 10, 20 years where that fits. But, rather than where a lot of the alcohol occasions have come down to like one or two drinks in 1 or 2 days of the week into like very narrow days and boxes, like I can share in like my own personal day, and it's like I'm a top consumer of athletic, not necessarily like just an employee here, but like I love my lunchtime beer, I love my commute beer, I have a beer with my family at home, I have a beer at night while I'm working, and like that's like 4 beers a day that like I really enjoy right there. And like those are
Every
all like
day?
pretty, I'm sure it goes way
Wow.
past that, like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
days too. But like but that's like real volume back for the industry. And like I'm not just drinking that because I'm like doing sensory all day or something at the brewery. It's like those are beers I want to have that go well with the moment and the relaxation and the culinary pairing and my commute. And those are all pretty much non-beer occasions in today's world to some extent. So I think there's a lot of occasions and growth we can get back. And then you start to go into the consumers too, where, you know, you have waves and waves of consumers and college kids. And when I'm out there, like our awareness among college kids, especially like athletes and stuff, is so high right now. And all those people are going to graduate and be professionals and live in metro areas. And so I think that's really bullish for our future on-premise business. And so I think there's ironically to actually answer the question, I think there's more occasions than not that we don't know about. And I think there's just going to be an absolute explosion of occasions in the coming 10 years.
I do have to say that there are times where I look in my fridge because I'm not kissing your butt, but I do always have athletic in my fridge. There's times I look at it and I'm like, is it too early even for an athletic? And I have to tell you, sometimes the answer is yes. If it's 10 a.m., I'm just, I might want to reach for that athletic, but I don't, unless it's like a brunch or, that's different. But just any insights on the morning day part?
I think it's just a style mismatch. I think you're missing a
Yeah.
six pack there potentially.
Okay.
But in seriousness, not to tie too far back to another question though, like when we did the analysis on THC, like we don't like have any opposition to it. Like we like just like we don't judge alcohol, we don't judge
Sure.
THC. I think all these categories are going to be enormous in the future. One thing that was a negative on THC for me though was that like I just rattled off like a number of occasions and I see the volume argument for beer, spirits, and non-alcoholic beer. I do think one area THC will be challenged as margin structures compress over time, especially. It's basically like a 1 unit per night drink. And I think that is potentially an industry issue as people go from like 5 beers to one of these. That's occasion shrinking, not growing, where
Mhm.
athletic is like really growing the pie.
Yeah. You don't think they'll be crushing cans of the 5 milligram THC if that comes through?
I mean, it all depends on the life cycle or the life stage people are in. So,
Right,
yeah,
right, right. Yeah.
no,
Young people
no,
can do anything.
no judgments there either. So, yeah, if
Yeah, totally. It's as my son, who's 10 now, says, don't yuck, they're yum.
well, well, in our like we do research on everything, and like but that was an insight we had, which was one of the most core in the business opportunity, was that as margins compress, like people are very likely to drink alcoholic beer, non-alcoholic beer, alcoholic beer, non-alcoholic beer in the same occasion, and they're all volume building. But with THC, they don't drink alcohol in the same occasion. So it's like
Interesting.
for on average, we found that most survey respondents said like 1 unit per day, basically,
Wow. That's very
which
interesting.
is different from most other categories.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just have one more, and it's a big one, but when do you guys take the next giant step? Another fundraise, another facility? Obviously, you just opened a facility, but still, you always have to be planning these things years in advance. A sale, any of the above. When is the next big, you know, thing?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of did just complete the big thing
Right.
in a way where, we have an unbelievable cap table of investors. All are very long time horizon focused. All of us believe non-alcoholic beer is going from 2% to 10% to 20%. And we want to like lead that charge and make it play out. And I'd say John, me, and the team are having more fun than ever. We had our monthly team update call like a couple hours before this, and like our team is just having a lot of fun. And so, but we are thinking about growing our international business more. We've had good success points in Canada and the UK, and so like continuing to expand the US business is potentially a new big or the international business is potentially a new big horizon. There's total classes of trade and channels in the US we're not in. And then, we don't spend as much time thinking about capital structure as like the big goals of where we're going and like the role we want to play in the industry and like the products with our consumers. So yeah, it's sorry to disappoint there, but I don't have any big breaking news, but I'll be sure to circle up if and when we do.
That's right. Yeah, just call us first. Well, that's all I've got. I don't know if anybody else has anything else, but thank you as always, Bill. It's always great to catch up, and you guys always have exciting stuff going on. It's a great story for the industry, of course. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, one of the main things, like we're pro industry growth, and I'm so optimistic with like turning the calendar on a tough year in 2025 for the industry. We're looking at a year with great football, expanded college football playoff, Olympics, World Cup. You know, people are back out there and ready to go. You know, GDP growth, I think, just came in at near 5%. Like, this could potentially be an exciting beer year. And so, yeah, we're having a lot of fun and we're really bullish. And so excited for the year ahead.
All right. Well, cheers. Thank you, Bill. We'll check in with
Thanks,
you soon.
Bill.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll miss you
Great
at
to
the
see you.
summit.
Yeah,
But
sorry to miss you at the summit.
congratulations on the new
I
edition.
I promise this will be the one and only miss. So thank you. Have fun.
Cheers.
We will.
Cheers. Thank you.